We're coming to you from the Dow Award Center. Mike McIntyre addressed the 2015 class. Letters of intent all in, so you can finally talk about them. And Ryan, Sunny Day got started with a bang with Patrick Carr, who was uncommitted coming into the day, commits to Colorado, gets the fan base very excited, a top 100 recruit in Texas. 3 running backs they signed this recruiting cycle.
Yeah, Patrick Carr definitely kind of almost ends up being the headliner of the class because obviously BuffStampede users weren't necessarily surprised that he came on board, but he's the last to come on board and kind of the biggest win in terms of that late battle there. So Patrick Carr is a big signing for the Buffaloes. When you watch his film, he's just a really, really fast running back, and for being 5'8", he's almost 200 pounds, so he's no just a scat back out there. He's got some power to him as well. Then you go on down the line, and it seems like these guys have almost been overshadowed. You talk about Aaron Baltazar, who just a couple days ago was that late guy who came in and had everyone excited, and I'm even guilty of bumping him out of my top 5 commitments as soon as Patrick Carr comes on. So another, a more powerful running back, but a guy who really has a ton of potential that you saw a bit of when he was a freshman. And then, of course, Donald Gordon, who maybe it looks like it opens up for him to redshirt now, which would probably be nice, but Coach Mack said, any of these 3 guys could easily factor into the rotation this year. So I think when you look at this running back, now becomes probably the strongest position on the team and definitely the strongest position of this class.
Yeah, you talked about the fact that 1 or 2 of these running backs will probably be in the mix to play. Mike McIntyre admitted, though, by and large, a lot of these guys coming in, aside from the junior college mid-year guys, aren't going to have to play right away, which is the point that we've been waiting for a very long time for this program to get to. And Mike McIntyre even threw out a number that I think would get Colorado fans excited for the future. He said next year, when you look at 2016, now attrition could affect us a little bit, but he said they're on pace to have 48 upperclassmen on scholarship on the roster, and I can't remember the last time it was even close to that number. We had the big senior class with Embry's first year, but not in terms of juniors and seniors.
Yeah, and those are the guys who have been solidly contributing the last couple of years. So it's going to be a senior, junior, upperclassman heavy class of guys that have really been solid contributors. And we talked about this a little bit on the radio show the other day, but those are the teams that come out and surprise people. The teams that are upperclassmen heavy, with guys that have played together, been in the same system. Those are the teams that go out and surprise people because there's a whole different aspect of a team, a real team that's been together like that can kind of boost a team that might not be as talented as another team.
One of the guys that will play right away, and we've known this ever since he committed, is Alex Kinney, in-state punter commitment. And he signs earlier today, and the Sports Information Department puts out the graphic with just punter on there. And then they come back later and they add a PK for place kicker. So Mike McIntyre even mentioned the fact that he could potentially be a place kicker as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Mac even said we expect him to be our punter in our first game and maybe even our kicker in the first game. To me, that's a short-term solution. You don't always want to have a guy kicking that often, especially when specialists spend so much time on their craft. Dara O'Neill would tell you that if he had to split his time between punting and kicking, he would never be the punter he is right now. So it's a bit of a short-term solution for a team who has some question marks at that position. But for 1 year, I think that's an okay thing to do.
Yeah, if you've got your starting place kicker shanking 25-yard field goals, you're going to have to do something there, and it's nice to have a guy on board that can at least be an emergency-type guy that can fill in that role. Mike McIntyre talked a lot about their satellite camps that they run, and we've talked about this a lot, the fact that that's so important for this program. Mike McIntyre used the word lifeline for this program right now because, as we've discussed again ad nauseum, blue chippers are not knocking down the door to come play for Colorado right now. This is a program coming off a 2-10 season, but the fact that they've seen so many of these kids in person, evaluated them, it certainly feeds the glass half full crowd.
Yeah, I asked McIntyre if he's a fan of filling up the class early, and he kind of said, it's the fault, not the fault, but it's the effect of these camps that happens that way. They see a guy and they offer him, and he commits early. And that is something that this staff has to thrive on right now. And McIntyre admitted that that is their lifeline right now. That is what they thrive on, because they don't have the luxury of guys coming to them. They got to go out there and find them, and for them to be able to do that, especially in this class, you look at guys, all the way down to Steven Montez, Donald Gordon. These are all guys that they saw out there, and that's a really big positive for them.
Early recruiting is a trend in college football, and so is uniforms, flashy new uniforms. Brian, you asked Mike McIntyre a little bit about that today.
Yeah, I found my window to try and sneak in that question on when they're going to update the uniforms. And obviously, as it always is with Nike and just with CU in general, he was a bit vague, but he said, as much as he doesn't like to admit it, uniforms do create buzz in recruiting, and it helps in recruiting. And he said there's some new things that we're going to unveil this year that he thinks are going to excite everyone. So I think, maybe for me that might be one of the most exciting developments of that press conference, because we've kind of been getting the runaround for a while on whether CU is going to update the uniforms. And from that, without getting yourself into trouble reading in the lines too much, it sounds like there could be an update there.
Well, as much as I enjoyed covering these class of 2015 commitments, now signees, I'm ready to turn the page to 2016. I wish I could go home and sleep for a week, but still a defensive coordinator to be named, and we got to get cracking on the class of 2016. You excited about a smaller class? They're going to be pretty selective, I think, with their offers.
Yeah, I think you'll see them not quite grab as many guys early, obviously, because they would fill up the class in a couple weeks if they do it as fast as they did last year, once you get into the summer. So I'm excited to see the way that this staff goes about recruiting that class and picking and choosing, the 10 to 15 guys that they really want. Yahoo!